Hi, everybody. We're going to dive into some of the numbers that are telling us whether we are in a seller market, a buyer market, or maybe there's some sort of a new normal. Everybody always wants to know, are homes selling? How's the market? And what do I think is going to happen in the next few months? I will answer all those questions. I'm Stacy Esser, and thank you guys for watching. Take a look here first, you guys. We can see that Tenafly, Cresskill, Demarest, Haworth, Closter, all these towns are still seeing a lot of upward movement in pricing. And of course, that's different than a lot of the rest of the country, but we are still seeing it. However, there are numbers that are showing us some slightly different information or slightly different ripplings are potentially happening. And that's what I want to show you guys. So let's take a look at some of those numbers together. All right, here you go. So some of the numbers we're looking at would be how many units have sold compared to last year. You're looking at that here. 24, you could see we've sold more units in 24 than we did in 25. This is through August. 79 units pending as opposed to 112 units pending. That's going to mean that the sales numbers are going to continue to be down through the selling cycle. And then we go to new listings. So of course it makes sense. New listings are also down. So that's still telling us that we're having less solds and less pendings, not necessarily because there's less demand, but because there are less new listings coming up. Less new listings means less to sell. All right, now let's take a look at these numbers. Now, these are also interesting numbers to look at because this is the ratio or the difference that homes sell versus the price they went on the market for. These are still very, very strong numbers. When you're seeing houses sell 100, 101%, whether it's the original listing price, which is this OLP number, or the final listing price, which is over here, both 24 and 25 are showing us that when that house is sold, it is selling at a very, very competitive number, which means if you are on the market and you're pricing your house or you're thinking about pricing your house to go to market, you have to be very careful because the buyers are still buying when the house is very close to its asking price, okay? Let's take a look at this here. This is the one number right here that is showing some signs of a tug of war, a stalemate between buyer and seller. And over the summer, we saw this happening, boots on the ground. When you have more days on the market, when you have homes sitting longer to sell, it's an indication that there is a disconnect between the buyer and the seller. The other thing that's not here, but I'm telling you, is more price reductions and more homes coming off the market. Those three things are an indication that there is a very big difference of opinion as far as what a seller will sell for and what a buyer is willing to pay. Just because we live in an affluent area, it doesn't mean that there are not budget issues, affordability issues with the buyers, right? And the other thing that I think is really important to consider is this. We know 65 to 70% of everybody who is selling is also a buyer. We also know that those people that live in, most people who are living in houses right now have mortgage rates that are well below the rates that are currently offered. And that is why mortgage rates directly affect the product that comes to the market and, of course, the buying power of the buyers. Will people who are sitting in their houses at rates below 3% be willing to sell if they don't get the number they want because they have to go and buy something else? All right, so now what everybody's looking for, of course, are the prices. So you can see the average list price is still jumping up. Pretty high, of course. The average sold price is still jumping up, and the median sold price is still jumping up very, very much so. And if you look at this compared to even just all of Bergen County, I can tell you that all of Bergen County is pretty much flat with their prices, but Tenafly is still rising year to date. So let's just take a quick look at why all that's happening. So I just want you to look here. And I want you to see, this is just a mortgage report. So when the Fed funds rate was cut in this week, I'm filming this in the third week of September, and although the mortgage rates spiked slightly, we have been trending down with rates for the last several weeks. We've been trending down. If you look back at September of 2024, right here, we started tracking super, super high, right? The rates started going up, 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 up. And then basically during the height of what would have been our spring season, we were hovering at about 7%. And when you have rates hovering at about 7% and people own their homes at rates that are 3% or lower, you have a very hard time shaking those homes loose. So what may happen now is that when the rates stay closer to 6%, we may loosen some inventory. My advice is that if you're a buyer and you're waiting for the rates to adjust, I would say to you that's probably not the best idea, because if you're buying in the same market, you're going to see prices go up. You're going to see more competition. You're going to see fewer days on the market. Work with your lender and, of course, your agent to get a floating rate and to get an opportunity to do a refi. You can always have a chance to refi for very little money. Your lenders will work that out with you. Okay. If you're a seller in this market and you're buying in another market, let's get on the phone and talk about the markets that are not super competitive, that are seeing prices coming down, and let's make the most of the fact that you're still in a seller's market here, and we can move you into a buyer's market in another area. Additionally, please don't think as a seller that just because you're still in a seller's market, which you are, that your house can go on the market looking however it looks and at whatever price, and it'll just sell, because we are seeing pushback from buyers. So you have to check enough boxes with the buyer, have your house prepped and marketed correctly, and be very strategic with your pricing. As always, different price points happen very differently, which is why getting on a call with us, with myself or anybody on my team, and talking about strategy and timing makes sense. I do believe fourth quarter is going to be a very good time to put your house on the market, just simply based on the fact that we have pent-up demand and interest rates have been coming down. And with the Fed coming out and cutting Fed funds rates, even though the mortgage rates have been coming, it's sort of like the public awareness has elevated and the buyers are feeling better about making purchases. So that's what I think is going to happen. Unless we see something crazy in the news or with economic reports, we should be in a good place for fourth quarter. Thank you so much for watching, and like, subscribe, and comment. I really appreciate it, and I want you guys to have a healthy and a happy. Bye-bye.